Broadcasting from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
Good day, it's time for another episode of Shark Bite Biz with yours truly, David Strausser. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Really excited to have everybody watching this episode. I did want to track back though to episode number 1. Now that it's officially launched and available everywhere, I did notice that I skipped over some very important info about my experience with Vision 33. What I forgot to mention is that I was kicking so much butt as a sales rep for them, literally doing millions of dollars a year in revenue, that I was able to move up the ladder. And I got promoted to become the general manager of the Northeast region for Vision 33. So this means my specialty isn't sales anymore. I still sell. I have a sales team. But I have to actually see through what my sales team actually sells to ensure clients get their solution delivered on time and on budget. I'm managing everything now. It's really cool. But the most gratifying part about this experience is that I really get to help small businesses grow. I help them unchain the barriers that are preventing them from growing bigger. And I gotta tell you, there is nothing more satisfying than that to me. Speaking of growth, it's been really, really hard to grow businesses during the pandemic. Now that some things are starting to reopen, though, there are a ton of legal questions people have. Things like, can I force customers to wear masks? How do you protect yourself legally with both your clients and your employees? What if there's a breakout at your business? Are you liable? We're going to be talking about these topics and much more because there are a ton of questions business principals have right now as we start to reopen the country. So today's guest is going to walk you through a bunch of these topics with me. Elizabeth Yang is the founder, CEO of the Law Mediation Offices of Elizabeth Yang, which specializes in family law, intellectual property, business law, and estate planning. So what do you say? How about we bring her in and let's start talking with Elizabeth.
Business strategy.
Hey Elizabeth, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. Good friends over the last couple years, and I'm so excited to have you on. I think a good place to start would be, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your background, and, some of the things that your business does to help out other businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on, David. It's a pleasure to be here. So I am an attorney in Southern California, and I specialize in family law, business law, intellectual property, and also estate planning. And we have offices throughout Southern California in LA County and Orange County. During the last few months of what's been happening, we've been seeing an increase in family law with a lot of couples wanting to get divorced. They realize they either get along really well or they can't stand each other. So, in a nutshell, that's what we've been handling.
Yeah, kind of funny how quarantine pushes that stuff together to happen like that, which is funny that you mentioned that, because we just interviewed James Shea from Cybertegic, and apparently I guess you actually use his services, and he was explaining to us the analyzing the data analytics, finding the points, and he was basically explaining how like it was decided after analyzing the data that like, hey, you should kind of shift over to this for right now because it's going to be hot for you. And it sounds like it worked out for the past couple months.
Oh, totally. Yeah, James's company, Cybertegic, has been amazing. So, during the last few months, we've really had to pivot our marketing. Pre-COVID, we've had to we did a lot of advertising on restaurant placemats, for example. And now that all the restaurants are closed, obviously we had to cancel all those placemats. Pretty much everything has been shifted to online. So James, he's a certified Yelp vendor, and so I try to do Yelp ads myself at one point, and I was just getting a lot of clients that weren't even relevant to what I do. I got a lot of PI clients, for example, and immigration clients. Yeah, so it was like a waste of time and money. And after I shifted to James's services, we've been getting so much, relevant clients and family law.
That's great. I want to just ask you one side topic on the marketing aspect for your business. When I see here restaurant mats advertising and that, I think old school when I, at a restaurant with my parents sitting there waiting to be done and I'm bored waiting for the food. And it's like, okay, I guess I can draw with crayons on this. And I remember those restaurant mats. Did you actually get good results from that when businesses were operating?
We did, yeah, because just like, you as a consumer, you're bored and there's no reading material, so they actually look at our ads, and I felt like
crazy.
It was a better result than billboards even. Billboards you drive by and then you don't really have time to write things down. Some people will like take a picture of a restaurant ad or rip it out and save my info, and I got a lot of calls and clients from
Wow, that's pretty crazy because that's a really old school technique that is still valid in the Roaring 20s. So that's pretty cool. Now let's shift gears to talk more about your specialty. After all, that's why you're here. And this lockdown, quarantine, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, has brought a lot of struggles for businesses. Right now, just this week that we're recording this, you're seeing every other article is about a business that has had to throw somebody out because they're not wearing face masks and stuff like that. What type of responsibility does a business have towards that, protecting their customers? And also, could they have legal claims against the person not wearing the face mask? How tricky is this?
Oh, totally. It's a very tricky process right now. And I think all the entrepreneurs and business owners it's like a juggling act. They're trying to learn all of the new rules and regulations while trying to keep their employees and clients safe at the same time. So our office just reopened last Monday. And even though we're reopened, I'm having my employees, I'm giving them the choice of working remotely if they want to, or coming into the office. There are still folks that feel unsafe coming out at this point. So I don't want anyone being uncomfortable. So fortunately, in my field, people can still perform services for their clients as long as they have a computer. So they're half of them are working remotely and half of them are in the office. But for businesses like restaurants, where you have to go in, you can't just, provide that service remotely forever. There's a lot of regulations. So you can take a client's temperature, before they walk in, but you have to have someone who's certified and licensed to do so. So not anyone can operate that equipment. Right?
Are you able to deny them entry, though, if they say... I mean, I understand this may vary state to state depending on laws, regulations, and stuff, but in generally speaking, in majority of the states, if someone will not get their temperature taken, you have the right to deny them service in this day and age with this stuff?
You do, yes, because it's all private business. So the business owners can make the call on who they want to reject from their restaurant or whatever service they're offering. So they can make their own rules, but they also have to follow the minimum guidelines that the county is requiring, in whatever county they're in. So, they have to social distance the 6 feet. And unfortunately, I'm in LA County, and we just got named the worst county in the entire nation.
Oh, man.
So they've caught thousands of restaurants not abiding by the guidelines. They've reopened up. Some of them are just uncertain what the guidelines are, because the guidelines do vary from county to county, from city to city. And so if they're unknown, but they just want to open up to start making profit and stop taking a loss, they're just going to do their best. And they found, countless places, countless establishments violating guidelines.
So on that topic about businesses that are found to be violating guidelines, maybe they're not even found violating guidelines. What kind of liability could they have to either customers or employees that get sick because they did not follow guidelines? I mean, is there risk there as well?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's very risky. It's very dangerous, because if an establishment is the cause of someone getting sick, or getting contaminated, they could be the subject of a lawsuit. And some of these restaurants are barely making it. So if a lawsuit is filed against them, they're likely going to just go bankrupt. So a lot of PI attorneys, now that the number of auto accident cases and traffic cases have been going down, since people haven't been driving.
I could just imagine where you're going with this.
Yeah, they're pivoting their strategy to helping people who, got sick file cases instead, because that's the new personal injury case nowadays.
Right. What if a restaurant is doing everything by the book? And I use that loosely because nobody's perfect. I doubt everybody's going to have everything, all the I's dotted, T's crossed. There may be something, but, and let's just say they do it as best as they can. Employees or, customers get sick. Do they still have liability there if they're doing their best?
Well, this is a brand new area in the law, right? And so court systems are handling new cases day by day, right? There's now court hearings on Zoom for the first time, in the history of the legal system. And there's now jury trials that are either being done on Zoom or... Okay,
hold on. Sorry. Jury trials are being done on Zoom?
That's what I'm hearing.
Wow.
I haven't done one personally myself.
Wow.
But every court system across the nation are trying to accommodate all these changes. There's battles about whether or not it's okay for jurors to wear masks. Right? Or take off their masks, for attorneys to wear masks or not have masks on. The law is a very, it's an area where you have to see facial expression.
Right. I was just about to say that facial expression is important. Think if you have somebody on the stand, okay? Nope, I didn't do it, compared to nope, I did not do it. And he has a huge grin. You won't be able to tell.
Exactly.
That's important.
And attorneys also have to read expressions of jurors. So imagine a person serving jury duty saying, I'm not going to take off my mask. I'm more concerned about my own safety. How are you going to force someone to remove their mask? So there's just so many things happening right now. So it all comes down to, if a jury is going to think this establishment did the right job, follow the right follow the right guidelines. If the restaurant can say, I did everything in my power, I provided PPE, I, had hand sanitizer for everybody, I deep cleaned everything every hour, and still someone got sick, the jurors might be more lenient on that establishment if there was a lawsuit.
But the point is that they could still potentially be sued.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
There's so much room for liability right now. So it's a very risky and scary time for businesses.
That amazes me, though, still, with the jury trials via Zoom. That's a very, very interesting concept. I know I saw the Supreme Court was doing it, I think, through teleconference. I don't think it was Zoom. So there's a lot of firsts going through this age. And I think one of the good things I see from it, luckily I've been work from home for a very, very long time, and I never have to go to the office, hopefully ever again, and I love it. But I think it's kind of bucked a lot of traditions, a lot of things that we just did because that was the way. And now we're seeing hey, a lot of this stuff is actually unnecessary. Employees save time in commuting. They can work from home. They actually work more because they don't have the commute. They'll answer emails or phone calls in the evenings. So there's a lot of, I hope my aspiration is that I hope this changes the country for the better after the experience and kind of forces a new way.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to change the country in the long term. I don't think this is like a temporary shift.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies, like you said, are realizing that their employees can work just as productively and efficiently from home. So a lot of the major corporations are allowing their employees to continue working remotely
Right.
even after the quarantine is over. They're going to save so much money in not just their rent, but large companies sometimes have high costs in just air conditioning alone. They can like save
Right.
$50,000 on air conditioning bills.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, technology has really helped, provide all this and make it happen. So I think there's going to be a lot of more remote workers in the future.
Now, when we're talking about remote workers, though, during this lockdown quarantine period, probably throughout the end of the year for most companies, what kind of legal rights would businesses have to ensure that their employees are actually working and productive? Especially if you have, say you have salespeople, okay? They used to work in the office, now they don't, and you can't actually see them. How can you try to verify that without crossing an illegal line?
Yeah. Well, I know there are a lot of apps out there that monitor movement on a employee's laptop. I myself don't think yeah, you have that option, but I don't think we really need that for my employees, for example. I feel like if I trust them and
Yep.
just allow them to perform and with as much freedom as possible,
Yep.
they actually end up working more productively because they
Right.
feel trusted. And then also like in my industry, attorneys bill hours, so
Mm-hmm.
they can work however many hours they want. They can watch Netflix as long as they're billing the hours and meeting their
Yep.
billable
The bottom
requirements.
line.
Then yeah, it's measurable.
Yeah, I am the same way with most of my team. Doing the implementations out through here. We run a small team, like 15 consultants right now. But with them, I mean, it's easy to tell if they are working, aren't working, because we could tell by the billable hours. The salespeople, though, are the ones that have me wondering, like, hey, are you working? Where are the deals? But, ultimately, I found as well, too, it does come to the trust aspect of everything. And, really just trusting your employee. It's like when you get to a certain level, you shouldn't really have to babysit the employee. Maybe they need coaching or guiding, but you shouldn't really have to babysit them by holding their hand throughout the day. Especially in an established position, you know what your duties are. Get them done. That's how I view it.
Yeah. And sometimes the more a boss micromanages, the more the employee is going to try to find loopholes and get away with things.
Yeah.
When they're just free to do anything, like my employees have told me that if they're in the office working, they will be out by 6 p.m. That's when our office closes and that's when they go home. When they're at home, they sometimes will work into 7, 8 p.m. into the evenings because they have nothing else better to do. There's like
Right.
no deadline, no stop time.
Right. Exactly. Could that open up the opportunity, though, for businesses to have some sort of issue as far as an employee trying to claim, like, oh, well, I did all these extra hours in the evening when I was work from home and you guys owe me overtime or things like that? Could that be an issue? Do you think that's limited?
Well, for hourly employees, definitely, because hourly employees, they're still expected to clock in and clock out. So
Okay.
my hourly employees, they're still clocking in, clocking out at the appropriate hours. I was
Okay.
talking about the salaried employees.
Right. Salary.
Attorneys, right? They can work whatever hours they want.
Yeah.
So they're the ones telling me that they've seen themselves working later and later into the evening, and it's by choice.
Right. I get you. So, what do you think the biggest risk is legally for businesses during this time period as we're hopefully transitioning, although I'm seeing that there's more spikes again, so who knows? But as we transition to getting out of this to a post-quarantine area, what do you think the biggest risks are? How can businesses protect themselves the best?
I think the best thing for businesses to do is to keep up with all the information that's going
Hmm.
out there. There's a ton of information, and I see myself like sometimes on webinars 5 or 6 times a day because
Right.
there's just a lot of new information that we just have to keep up with and continue learning day by day. And it's not over yet. There's going to be new information with the new numbers and the new spikes. They might lock us all down one
Right.
more time. That's what's happening in China right now.
Right. Right. I saw that. I think Beijing. Right.
Yeah, Beijing's completely locked down for the second time because the numbers spiked again.
Yeah.
So we got to continue being educated, and keep on top of all the information.
Hmm.
And webinars are like the best way because obviously you can't go to classes or anything right now.
That's great info. So principals in the business, owners, managers, staying actually educated on the subject so that you're up to date what the experts think and feel and are guiding businesses to do is pretty important because without that, I would assume that the business would probably have a lot of liability because they would not be following the proper procedures.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of good information out there, good sources. Like the local Chamber of Commerce is here in Southern
Yeah.
California. They have like weekly webinars talking about how companies can best go back to work and
Hmm.
follow the correct procedures, because everyone's asking the same questions. So as long as you're keeping up with that and at least making an effort, no one's going to blame you for, making one or two mistakes.
Right, right. Now, what about debt for businesses? Businesses that may have been closed down. I mean, I understand, yeah, probably have to talk with somebody more in the financial side, but from the legal standpoint, I mean, how can they protect themselves so they just don't have to file, bankruptcy or they get, sued by creditors, stuff like that, especially if their businesses were closed?
Yeah, well, every business was encountering all these financial situations when they're not open for business, no
Hmm.
income's coming in. So fortunately, most businesses did get the PPP loan. The
Right.
second round is still not depleted yet, so there is still money. I think
Okay.
there's like multiple billions of dollars still left in that pot
That's
for
great.
it to go around. And if the numbers continue going up and lockdowns are required,
Uh-huh.
the government's probably going to put more money into that pot to
Yeah,
give to
you
businesses.
you would think. That's one thing I've been thinking about, and that kind of worries me. These PPP loans really help businesses, meet things like payroll and stuff like that during the, most of the lockdown areas. But what about the startup capital that they're actually going to need when they open to resupply inventory, keep paying wages, rents, electric, all that stuff? It's going to be a pretty tricky situation, I think, within the next couple months for both the private sector and the government to kind of maneuver to get everything, flowing properly again.
Yeah, and I think the key word right there is maneuvering.
Yeah.
If they continue maneuvering and being adaptable, that's the best way to handle the situation, right?
Right.
If I have a friend who has an office supplies company, and once the quarantine hit, people stopped buying office supplies, so he transitioned into
Wow.
selling masks and PPE instead.
Oh,
He went and
that's great.
got a new vendor, had negotiations with someone from China, and now he's making more money than he was before.
That's
So
great innovation, though. I've heard a couple stories like that. That's great. Being able to just maneuver and flip over, like, okay, let's do that. It's kind of like what we were talking about with how James has helped you change your advertising for the family law stuff. You realized the opportunity, you saw the data, the opportunity, and you just ran with it.
yeah, yeah, I think there's opportunities out there. The economy is still moving along. You just have to keep up with it
Hmm.
and be like Bruce Lee says, be like water, and then just flow with whatever hits you. Just flow with it and
Right, right,
be
right,
innovative, and don't be stuck with what you did in the past. It's
right,
a new modern day and a new era, and we just gotta keep up with everything
right.
that's going on.
Right, totally understand. So let's wrap up here. I guess I'll leave it to you. Do you have any final thoughts you'd want to say? Any gold nugget pieces of advice for business owners out there?
I think don't underestimate the power of webinars. If you have some information to share, just like, what you're doing right now,
Right.
David, sharing all this great information with the world,
Yeah.
host webinars. It's great for marketing
Mhm.
and it's great for audiences to get information. So right now with this new shift in technology, everything's going to be online, like um, dinners, galas, they're all going virtual now.
Yeah.
We're organizing and planning virtual conferences, multi-day conferences
Well,
with
yeah, I've
speakers
seen that.
online. And there's like limitless possibilities. They're getting like really powerful speakers that you otherwise wouldn't be listening to. But because it's online, those speakers are available. You can like watch Tony Robbins right in front of you,
Yeah.
whereas in the live stadium, he's like, 3 stages away.
Yeah. No, that's some really good advice. So, could you please give us your contact info? Because this show's not only on YouTube, but we also have the audio podcast that's out on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that places. How can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is yanglawoffices.com. It's my last name, YANG,
Yep.
lawoffices.com. And we also have an Instagram page, same handle, Yang Law Offices.
Okay, that's perfect. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you so much. You're always a wealth of knowledge. I love speaking with you, and I really hope that our listeners got a lot of value out of the advice that you gave us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, David. It was really
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much. Take care. Oh, wow, that was an amazing discussion. We got some excellent insight from Elizabeth in a couple different areas. I think what was most interesting is that we weren't just talking to one of the best legal minds around, but we were actually talking to Elizabeth Yang, small business owner as well. We just heard how her business had to pivot fast to target family law during the lockdowns. We also heard how her business was forced to be digitally transformed at light speed and how she ended up doing it. I'm still totally surprised about the restaurant placemats and how good they were pre pandemic and how she had to use an analytics company to help her decipher the data she had in order to make the shift to family law temporarily. Pretty cool, though, that because she made that shift, she was actually able to grow her business during a time that many businesses are contracting. There were some excellent tidbits also about liability. Realistically, I think Elizabeth's advice was you need to be educated. You need to know what are the departments of health saying? What is the CDC saying? Go to webinars, learn as much as you can, and that's going to give you the best protection possible in order to minimize your liability. Remember though, in most areas, if you have a non-cooperating customer, you have the right to refuse service. You can refuse those customers in most instances, not all. So remember, these are some very tricky waters to navigate. Really, I just hope that this discussion with Elizabeth has given you some sort of clarity and light to help you out with your similar situation as you go through this. So, what legal fears do you have during quarantine? Let me know, David at sharkbitebiz.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below and let's get this discussion started. Now it's my favorite time of the episode. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, I'm working very, very hard for you all, growing as a host better and better each episode. Please, please, please make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. That way, you'll be alerted when the next episode of Shark Bite Biz drops. Once again, I'm your host, David Strausser. I am extremely grateful that you had listened to today's show, and I really hope it helped you all break through whatever's holding you back. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.